How's it going, folks? This is Dan Golarz with the Dan Golarz Show. Thank you for joining in here. It's currently August of 2026. Today, for the Dan Golarz Show, I want to talk to you about the unfortunate situation of, and I do say unfortunate, situation of public transportation in the Los Angeles area. I currently live in the Los Angeles area. Not in, let's just say I live in the Los Angeles area currently. And the public transportation, when I say public transportation, I mean buses, metros, and the like, is not what it should be. Let's just call a spade a spade. It's not what it should be. Has it improved? Some people say it's improved from previous years. Some folks say that it's better than a lot of other cities in the United States. That may be true, but in my opinion, there's still lots and lots of room for improvement. Let's start. And by the way, I say this as somebody who's traveled to 51 countries, and by far the only country where I require, car ownership is almost required is the United States of America. So this isn't just a criticism of Los Angeles. It's a criticism of this country, the United States. The public transportation is, outside of New York City and a few other places, is not what it needs to be. And there's a lot of people who say, oh, it's hopeless. We will always be in cars and trucks. Car ownership will always be mandatory, especially in Los Angeles. It's a car happy city. I disagree with that. I think there's real potential for to make things better, and they have. I've actually researched this a little bit. They have money to make the situation better, and there are people who argue that it could be used better. They invest heavily. The leadership in Los Angeles invests heavy in rail, expensive rail. From what I've heard, I could be wrong about this, and perhaps that's the rail is overpriced. See. In the Los Angeles area, most people ride buses, but for some reason there's a lot of investment, an inordinate amount of investment in rail, in metro, and that's fine, but it shouldn't come at the cost of buses. I've crunched the numbers, and if it was equalized, say if they had half as much investing in metros and buses, if there was equal investment, we could drastically improve the frequency. Like, so for example, now buses, your average bus stop in Los Angeles, I could be wrong about this, you get a bus every 20 or 30 minutes, or maybe even 40 minutes into the night, or maybe even every hour, at certain times. That could be, I've heard that if there was proper allocation of funds, maybe less investing in metros and rail, and more investing in just making sure your buses run properly, you could get that down to 5 or 10 minute intervals, until for 24 hours. That's what I've heard. I could be wrong about that, but something needs to be done about the frequency of the buses. They're just way too infrequent. And study after study, I've heard, I could be wrong about this, shows that in any city in the United States, when you invest heavily in public transportation, when you improve the frequency, when you bring buses at the average bus stop from every half hour to every 10 minutes, people will come. People will ride the bus. It's like the Kevin Costner movie Field of Dreams. And if you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. Maybe that's not the exact quote, but my point I'm trying to make is that people do want public transportation. They want it. There are people who say, oh, people love their cars. They would never ride the bus. I fundamentally disagree with that. I fundamentally disagree with that. I think people would absolutely, if you made a situation in Los Angeles where every bus stop had a bus, or every 5 or 10 minutes, and it was on time, and the bus driver was friendly, and there was no drama, and it was 24 hours a day. So I think people would absolutely prefer the bus. Most people, in my opinion, a substantial amount would prefer the bus or the metro to driving an expensive car with overpriced oil changes and overpriced insurance. And I can't imagine somebody saying, I desire a super expensive car or a super expensive truck with high payments to a transit, doing public transportation at pennies on the dollar, or nickels on the dollar of what it costs me to drive for car ownership. I think people would be real fans of public transportation if it was properly implemented. So that's something I want to say about that. And something else, another point I want to hit on is public transportation is really helps people of low means. There's a debate about how can we help people of low means. And when you ask people, in my experience, when you sit down and talk to people who don't have a lot of money, their biggest concern is, hey, the alternator in my car went out. I need $1,000, or the tire needs to be replaced. So all four tires need to be replaced. So that's going to be cost. That's going to destroy me. It's the car. It's the automobile. It's the truck. It's the insurance payment. It's the oil change that that was much more expensive than they thought it would be. That's what's destroying people. It's other things, but seriously, when you talk to people who don't have a lot of money, whether it's Los Angeles or elsewhere, the car is really the car ownership, truck ownership is really, it's just destroying people. We really need public transportation in Los Angeles, and we need it yesterday. Another point I want to hit on is, if you go to Google, I shouldn't say that, but if you go to Maps, you look up, for example, how long does it take a bus to get, how long does it take to drive from, say, Long Beach to Santa Monica? Approximately 45 minutes or an hour with no traffic. I've actually investigated how long will it take a bus or a metro or public transportation to get, the same distance from Long Beach to Santa Monica, and it was some ridiculous amount of time. It was hours. I mean, it should not be a ratio of 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 or 5-to-1 as far as public transit versus car. That's just not a good ratio. Now, if you have a system where it takes twice as long or 1.5 times as long to get from A to B in public transit versus car, I think that's survivable. I think people would tolerate that. But and we're talking about between 6 a.m. and midnight. So if you want to. 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. So if you want to go somewhere, say from Long Beach to Santa Monica, and it's 9 p.m. and you're worried about getting home at 1 o'clock in the morning, it's not a good system. We really need better public transit. It really needs to become the focus. Somebody needs to do something about it. Something else I wanted to hit on, and night shift workers. Okay, if we improved, if we had 24-hour bus service in Los Angeles, in the Los Angeles area, if you can get on a bus 24 hours a day, this would be a massive boom to people who don't have a lot of money, who would like to accept a job and the job requires them to work a night shift. Like the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift, or the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift, or the 1 a.m. shift to the 8 a.m. shift. Well, people who don't have a lot of money, who can't afford a car or a truck, they can't accept that job. They can't. Sorry, I can't accept your job offer if they're in that situation. So that's another motivation for public transportation to be improved in Los Angeles County. So I say, this could, if certain people had their hearts in the right place, we could fix this. And by the way, I don't know if there is good communication between the Long Beach Transit and Los Angeles Transit and Pasadena Transit. If these systems all communicate and are working together, so there's no overlap, and maybe that's happening. I don't know. I haven't researched that situation. Maybe that's happening, but that's something that needs to be talked about. Our systems, busing systems, are they talking to each other, making sure that there's the most efficient use of drivers, of buses, where I think good communication, good allocation of funding, good priorities. I think if those things were worked on, that we could have a much better situation in Los Angeles, in the Los Angeles area. And dedicated busing lanes. I've heard that, and I've seen that there are, the buses, when you get on a bus, you're just riding with the cars and the trucks. There's no advantage. We need more and better dedicated busing lanes. This lane is just for buses. That would really improve the speed, and it would get people more motivated to ride the bus versus drive a truck or drive a car. With that said, I think I've said enough. I could probably keep talking for a couple hours, but I think you get the point. I think there is hope. I feel very optimistic. It's currently, like I said, August of 2026. I think if people really prioritize and really have a moment where they, use rational thinking, I think that well before 2030, we could have a situation in the Los Angeles area where, the public transportation is much better than it is, where the average person, would feel comfortable getting on a bus and going somewhere, on a daily basis. And reducing, this would be better for the environment. And people who say, "Oh, I'll never ride the bus. I'll never ride the metro." Guess what? Even if that's true, they would also win. Those people who would swear never to ride a bus or never ride a metro, they would be winners if we had good public transportation, because those people who refuse to ride a bus or ride a metro, would be able to enjoy less traffic. They would be able to enjoy less traffic jams, because people would be on the buses or metros instead of driving in their car. So these people who would stay in their cars and stay in their trucks, the stubborn drivers I call them, they would be happier too if we had better public transit, because they would enjoy less traffic jams when they drive. Okay, seriously, this is the Dan Golarz Show. Please, research everything I said. Maybe I'm wrong about a few things. I don't claim to be 100% right about the things I've said here. Please, 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 double check it, triple check it, and comment. If you disagree with me, say so. If you agree with me, say so. If you have a better idea, say so in the comments. Okay, folks, have a great day. Again, the Dan Golarz Show, and thank you for watching. Bye now.